It's the Bradfield Weather Podcast, underwritten by McAllen Construction. McAllen Construction Company, from the first dig to the last nail. And McAllen also does snow removal. And snow apparently has the chance to be part of our forecast over the next week. Isn't that correct, meteorologist Bradfield?
Hey, good morning, Dan. And yes, that is the answer to that question. It does not appear at this moment that we will be in any kind of a bullseye or any kind of a big snow accumulation, Dan. But the possibility does exist for some accumulating snow on Sunday night and then again Thursday night of next week. So in other words, a week from today. We are recording this podcast on Thursday morning, December 8th. So we are looking at this upcoming Sunday night for the potential of snow, and then Thursday night, December 15th, for the possibility of some more snow.
Well, on the one hand, it's easy to fathom because we are in December. On the other hand, as we take a look at some of the climatology for the first week of December, it doesn't feel like we have gotten into meteorological winter, so to speak.
Yeah, no, exactly, Dan. I mean, the first week of December averaged 4.1 degrees above average per day, including no snow and including 1.34 inches of rain. All of these readings verified at Bradley International Airport. The coldest day in this first week of December was this Monday, when low was 21, and the warmest day was yesterday, December 7th, with a high temperature reading of 58 degrees. Now, you might be wondering, with these variations in temperature, what's normal for this time of year. The December 8th climatology says that the normal high temperature for this day is 43 degrees. We are going to blow way past that today in terms of warmth. And the low temperature for December 8th climatologically, with records going back to 1905, is averaged out to be 27 degrees. But one thing I want to point out, Dan, is today I'm predicting a high temperature reading of 49, which is above that climatological normal. And then tomorrow I'm predicting a high of 42, which is just about at the climatological normal. But from then on, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, the next 7 days after tomorrow, I'm looking for temperatures mainly staying in the 30s during the day. So not severe cold, but certainly much colder. So we've got this one more warm day, Dan. Friday, tomorrow, the December 9th, is kind of a transitional day. And then it looks like next week will be somewhat colder than average. Not severely so, but somewhat colder than average.
Well, what does it look like on the weather map as we go to our On the Weather Map segment?
Dan, we've got high pressure right now that ridges from Hudson Bay down to the Great Lakes. We're starting to get a northerly flow in here, so the temperatures are going to trend colder, but it's not going to have much success during the day because we'll have the maximum heating from the sun occurring between 1 and 2 and 3 this afternoon, and at the same time, the atmosphere is trying to cool. So it's going to kind of be a standoff, not much change in temperature. We'll say upper 40s to right around 50. Tonight, the high builds across, and it starts to turn quite a bit colder. I think overnight, we're going to see readings between 26 and 32. Now, for Saturday, strong high pressure is going to be located from eastern with a northeast flow into eastern Massachusetts. So the high tonight over eastern Canada holds for the day on Friday with seasonable weather, and it strengthens during the day on Saturday across eastern Canada. But remember, the flow around high pressure is clockwise. So with the high to our due north, that means we're going to get a northeast flow. Now, that moist flow off the ocean water is going to give rise to the possibility of snow flurries along the New England coast from eastern to the New Hampshire shoreline, to the north shore of Boston, to the south shore in Cape Cod. They may see some flurry action this weekend. So if you're heading out that way toward eastern New England, you may run into some flurries. I do not expect them, though, here in Connecticut. Now, on Sunday, Dan, we'll have a continued northeast flow. So it's going to be a cold flow, the northerly wind bringing in the cold, the easterly wind bringing in the moisture. And at the same time, a low pressure system is going to be near Cleveland. Now, that low could play a role in our Sunday night weather. We'll talk about that in just a minute. By Monday, the low will be a couple of 100 miles southeast of Cape Cod and moving away. We will see improving weather on Monday. High pressure, a cold high pressure system, over Hudson Bay on Tuesday of next week, Dan, will sponsor some sunny and cold weather in here. And on Wednesday, that high will ridge from eastern Canada down to Virginia. Less wind on Wednesday, lots of sun on Wednesday, but still cold on Wednesday. Highs probably only in the mid-30s, so maybe about 5 or 7 degrees colder than average. And then on Thursday, the pressure system will be in Wisconsin with a warm front extending to the North Carolina and Virginia coast. Cold air in place over New England, Dan, so that will lead to a possibility of some snow or some mixed precipitation on Thursday night, December 15th. So the astute listener will know that there's a problem brewing for Sunday night and there's a problem brewing for Thursday night. None of these look like they'll be exceptionally big or major problems for the region, Dan, but we can talk about them in some detail.
We'll return to the Bradfield Weather Podcast in just a moment, but we want to talk a bit about McAllen Construction, underwriters of the Bradfield Weather Podcast. McAllen Construction, based in Prospect, Connecticut, centrally located in the state, but servicing the entire state. McAllen Construction, in business, providing service for more than a quarter of a century, on call 24/7, 365 days a year. A woman-owned small minority business, licensed with the state of Connecticut and insured, handling residential and commercial building projects, and, this is important when you hear Brad's forecast, also handling snow removal for residential and commercial properties. McAllen Construction, utility construction, site work, water, sewer repairs, installation, licensed as a major contractor, a new home construction contractor, plumbing and piping limited P7, home improvement contractor, and subsurface sewage installer. Utility, carpentry, excavation, you name it, McAllen Construction can do it. And also, remember, snow removal for residents, commercial businesses, and state and local governments. Call McAllen Construction today at 203-758-3474, 203-758-3474. Visit McAllen Construction online at McAllenConstructionCT.com. That's McAllenConstructionCT.com. McAllen Construction, from the first dig to the last nail, and underwriters of the Bradfield Weather Podcast. You've done your research looking at the models, the GFS, the European models. So what do they show coming up over the next week?
Well, Dan, I took a look at the GFS model for the storm system coming in on Sunday night, and it intrigued me because it was the first thing I looked at this morning was sort of these precipitation profiles that I like to look at that are with the GFS. They're with the HRRR, which is the high resolution rapid refresh computer model, and then the NAM, the North American model. Now, the only one of those three models that goes out that far for Sunday night was the. But listen to this, Dan. The GFS is predicting. I'm not saying I'm predicting. I'm saying the GFS is predicting 3.7 inches of snow for Bradley on Sunday night. The GFS is predicting 0.51 inches of water equivalent, but all in the form of snow for Bridgeport. So if you use as a first approximation, to 1 snow to liquid, you just move the decimal point. That would be 5.1 inches of snow for Bridgeport. Groton predicting 3 inches of snow for Sunday night. New Haven, 5.3 inches of snow for Sunday night. Waterbury, 4.1 inches of snow for Sunday night. And Willimantic, 0.34 water equivalent, which would be 3.4 inches of snow for Sunday night. So that got my attention, Dan, because if you looked at it and you just moved the decimal point and said it was a 10 to 1 snow to liquid ratio, that would be 3 to 5 inches of snow coming in on Sunday night, which would warrant you getting your snowblower tuned up, and which would warrant Brad Field putting out his snow stakes at some point, either today or tomorrow.
Right. Well, that's the GFS, but the European model also caught your attention for a week from now. Isn't that correct?
Yeah, Dan. As far as just putting the Sunday night situation to bed, then we'll go into the Euro on next Thursday. The European predicted snow for Sunday night too, but it only had up to 1 inch of snow statewide, with 1 to 3 inches out in the Western Hills, out your way, Dan. And the Canadian kind of verified the European. The Canadian computer model for the Sunday night system brought in less than 1 inch of snow out near the Rhode Island border, but 1 to 3 inches of snow for central and western Connecticut. And you asked about situation number 2 coming up next Thursday. At 1 o'clock in the afternoon on Thursday, the European computer model has a low near Chesapeake Bay and mixed precipitation up to New York City. By 7 p.m., the low has moved to northern Delaware. We have one of those, what I like to call Connecticut mixes, Dan, according to the Euro, whereby they have snow in the Northwest Hills, they have mix along the I-84 corridor, and they have rain along I-95. So it's really interesting when you're looking at a map of the United States. I had to go in and blow it up to get to the state of Connecticut. And interestingly enough, Dan, it was one of those mixes. That a little corner of the Northwest up near you gets snow. I-84 gets the purple and the mix, and I-95 gets the green and the rain. That's what the European had for late next Thursday and Thursday night. 1 in the morning, it has the low pressure area up to the Long Island beaches, which would mean rain for much of Connecticut by then. So it snows through the evening, then it turns to rain. Mixed precipitation in far northern Connecticut, though, Dan, up along places within, say, 15, 20 miles of the Massachusetts border, could still be getting a sleety, icy mix. By 7 in the morning, the storm is near Boston. So if the storm tracks from the Long Island beaches up to Boston, you could argue it's staying off to our southeast. It's more of a snow track, but yeah, it's coming too close to give us pure snow. So I do not see that happening. I see it being one of these wintry mixes. As I stated, Northwest Hills gets some accumulating snow. I-84 gets an icy mix. I-95 gets predominant. That's how it looks to me right now. By 1 o'clock on Friday, though, of next week, so that'd be Friday the 16th, we'll have flurries, windy conditions, turning much colder come next Friday. And then next Saturday, Dan, so we're going all the way out to, what would that be? The 17th. Right. In other words, a full week before Christmas Eve, we will probably have our first sub-freezing day where it stays below freezing the entire day. So again, that would be next Saturday, December 17th.
Okay, well, to put a lid on everything then, and we are putting this podcast together on Thursday, December 8th, what does our forecast look like?
Well, it's going to be a very pleasant afternoon today, Dan, on Thursday, December 8th. Mainly sunny skies, a bit of a breeze out of the north, and temperatures between 46 and 52. Coming in overnight tonight, a much colder regime, but certainly not unusual for this time of year. Temperatures 26 to 32, which is just about seasonal. And then during the day tomorrow, it looks like a good deal of sunshine, temperature near 42, which is about seasonal for the time of year. On Saturday, it looks to be colder. We've got a mix of sun and clouds. Remember, we'll have those flurries out toward Boston and Cape Cod, but I don't think we'll get them here. I think a mix of clouds and sun, a northeasterly flow, temperatures say between 36 and 42, so near or a shade below average on Saturday. On Sunday, thickening clouds, and it looks like we'll see some snow developing at night. At this point, Dan, the GFS has been all over the board in terms of predicting warm weather when every other model was predicting cold weather. My bottom line here for you is I don't have too much faith in the GFS at this point. The GFS is the computer model going with 3 to 5 inches of snow. I'll just put that out there for you, but I do not think that's what's going to happen. I think a good part of the state, southern Connecticut, eastern Connecticut, will get an inch or less of snow, and places from draw a line from, say, Hartford to Waterbury. So in other words, the I-84 corridor, and then points north and west, I think we'll get 1 to 3 inches of snow on Sunday night. So that's my prediction for Sunday night. Monday, it looks like it'll be blustery and cold. Temperature on Monday only in the middle 30s. And Tuesday, bright and sunny, cold, hardly any wind, and let's say 35 to 40 next Tuesday.
Okay, my friend. And of course, we invite people to visit bradfieldweather.com, where not only can you access the podcast in addition to accessing your favorite podcast directory in order to listen to Bradfield Weather, because we are in all of the major podcast directories, but you update the forecast on a daily basis so people can follow along by going to bradfieldweather.com.
Absolutely, Dan. And if anything changes here and any of these storms look bigger, I think the timing is right with us doing these podcasts on Thursday morning for the next Thursday event, because it looks like it's coming in at Thursday night. So we'll have some good fresh data for that. But if something changes on Sunday and we're not thinking an inch or less for southern and eastern Connecticut and 1 to 3 inches for central and western Connecticut, if that number somehow goes up and we think it's going to be much more substantial storm, we'll give you a little update at some point on Sunday.
For sure. All right, my friend, to you and Sandy and our podcast audience, as always, thanks very much for listening to the podcast, which is also on radio, WAPJ Radio in Torrington, Connecticut. So we thank WAPJ for that. But to you and everyone, have a great weekend.
You too, Dan. Thanks so much.
The Bradfield Weather Podcast has been underwritten by McAllen Construction. McAllen Construction, servicing the entire state from the first dig to the last nail. And remember, McAllen handles snow removal for both residential and commercial properties.